Hello Cave Dwellers, welcome to the Cave with familiar face and friend of the Cave. Stephen Jones has returned. Welcome Stephen.
Thank you.
Fresh off the success of your successful Checkmate 1500 plus case Kickstarter and
Thank
delivery.
You. Yep.
It's still ongoing, or is it just coming to the end now, that project?
I'm down. I've got about another 300 cases I'm going to sell. Then we're going to kind of wind that one up.
And then that's it.
Yeah, then that's it. Yeah.
So you can't keep a good Amigan down, and Stephen is exactly that, because he returns today with not one but two projects.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start? Which one do you want to start us off with?
I suppose first thing is talk about the case.
The case.
Everyone's going to say, "Well, hang on a second, that's ended. What's your game?" The new case. People have been speculating about, will I do another case? Why don't I do another case? And the original Plus met its objectives. It was designed to hold 1200, 500, 600, but you could also put in a PC, you can put all kinds of things in there. A Mister. Yeah, that's a great video. And it was to hold all those. And of course that made it bigger than the original case. So I've wanted to do another case.
When you say the original case, that being the Amiga 3000,
yes,
it was based on.
Yeah. So I've always loved the 3000. I mean, I was even talking about it on the way here. I love the 3000, but I wanted to make something that was a bit more closer to the actual physical size, but for specific needs. So I am going to be doing a new case. The new case is purely mini ITX.
I can't hold back anymore. I think we need to show people pictures of the case while we talk about it.
And we can thank Paul Kitchen for these.
Let's bring these renders up from Paul Kitchen. They are fabulous pictures. And just to say from the off, this doesn't nullify the original case. This doesn't replace it. This complements it, doesn't it? So
it's very specific about what it can hold, and it's obviously a lot smaller. And this had been mentioned about, could you do a smaller case? And so this is really designed for three key areas. One is to put a mini ITX so you can build a nice PC. It won't take a GPU, so you still would need the big case for that. So it's designed for APUs, which for people who don't know, the graphics is on the actual CPU chip. And they're getting so fast nowadays that they actually make great systems. So it's designed for that. But on top of that, we're having developed, I think you've heard of the Amiga from Edu Arana.
Yes, yeah.
He's doing a custom board where the original one plugged into the back of a 500 case, and it was an FPGA and it ran quite nicely. And we're having a mini ITX custom board being designed for this case, although of course it will go in any case that's mini ITX.
So this will be the same as the existing Amiga, just rejigged to fit in this case. So let's just look at the visuals here that we've got, because you've got both white and black renders. Are they the same oyster white?
Yes.
It'll
follow the same colours.
Same colours. And the first thing that I can see, my first observation, is that you've lost a 5 1/4 inch drive bay. It's sort of brought the width in. What about the depth? Is that smaller as well?
The depth is 3 inches. I think it's 2 to 3 inches shorter, so it is shorter because we don't need to use up all that space. Which means it is not as deep as the 3000, but then
but there is still space there for a DVD drive if you want to put one in.
So I wanted to keep one 5 1/4 inch drive bay because they're very flexible. You can put anything you like in them, 3.5 inch devices, anything you want. You can still screw the actual drive tray is smaller now, but you can screw a solid state drive underneath it and then put, for example, a slot loader, or I put a full size 5 1/4 drive in there on mine.
And you've retained that A3000-esque power button on the right hand side.
Oh god, that's not
got to keep
anywhere.
that.
That's not going anywhere.
And what about the removable user plate that was on the front of the original
that's no
case?
longer there.
That's gone.
Yeah, because this one is trying to get really to make it look almost as close as we can to the 3000, and that was put there for obviously good reason. But I don't. Unless people talk me out of it, say, can you keep it? Because it kind of spoils. I like the flowing line.
The clean lines,
And if anything, what we are considering doing is on the 3000, if you're aware of the 3000, on the side, it had, you could plug in your ports and your keyboard down the side. There is a potential that I may have a port there so you can plug in micro SD cards. So do it around the right-hand side instead of spoiling the line at the front. I'm not going to make any comment about your case.
It was an acquired taste. So the smaller case here, now in black on this render, looks just as nice in black. Is it all built from the same materials?
It's the only difference is it's 4 inches narrower.
Okay.
It's exactly the same metal. It's exactly the same front. It's just we've reconfigured the design and the size for different market, but it's the same materials. In fact, some of the parts will swap out. So if you over-ordered on your front panels, the drive panels, and you've got spares, it will take them.
Your desire to make this the size of the original A3000, then where does that sit? Have you achieved
No,
that?
it's slightly narrower.
It's slightly smaller now.
Yeah, it's really funny. Well, that's an interesting one because I've done the latest model is done to be all it needs to be, and I notice it's about an inch narrower than the 3000, which is not the end of the world. But I also note that I can't. You only with the Mini ITX you only get one PCI slot. But they do double width GPUs that are half height,
right?
Which are quite good, but I don't think you need them. But so I may expand it a little bit to be exactly the size of the 3000, which will give you a bit more space there for your slot. So it may end up being identical width because it's pretty much the same height.
See, I don't see people buying this specifically to create a hardcore gaming machine, so they're not going to be looking at big GPUs. I don't think so. I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. Out of the box, what systems then would you expect to be able to drop in there? Because I'm assuming you can't put an original Amiga board in here.
No, none of the original Amigas are going to fit this.
Okay.
So hence why anything that's Mini ITX format, anything. So having said that, there is actually a redesigned Amiga motherboard that's AMI ITX. That will fit. The Trevor's Tabor card, that will fit into it. So anything that's Mini ITX. And on that subject, as I said, we've got an FPGA board coming that's got a Mini ITX mounting frame. Yep. But also I'm doing a Raspberry Pi fitting kit that has all the ports on the back, which you'll see in this video hopefully. And that's got a kit to go in the Mini ITX as well. So it's only thing that will go in here is something that's the Mini ITX form factor.
Okay, and I've got my Mister, as you've seen in the other case. If I wanted to drop that in there, I'm not expecting that to be out of the box ready to go in, but will there be options? Will there be CAD files that we can get hold of if we want to design?
I'm more than happy to do the metal frame. As you'll probably see with the Pi, there's a metal frame that you screw the Pi into and the adapters into, and then you screw the metal frame into the ITX. I'm happy to make one of them with an upstand with some cutouts. We just can't get into making the cables and the kits, but I'm sure people out there know how to do all that. And I'll make it. If we can talk about what kind of hole cutouts you want on the back plate, and then we can put them as so the metal framework. Everything else, I mean, you could technically still have. I don't know if you want to put a PSU in there because I like your mouse garage. So I don't know if you want to put a PSU in there, but if you wanted to put a PSU in there, you could power it from that.
If you want to buy the patent for the mouse house off of me, you're more than welcome. We can talk. Talk.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that later. I'll get my friend Alan Sugar. I think he's around here somewhere. I'll get him to have
And of course, the big one, the Vampire V4.
Yep.
Will that go in there?
Right. So the Vampire's an interesting one because the standalone has got ports either side. So again, it comes into the thing the same with the Mister. I'm hoping the Vampire team will do a Mini ITX form factor Vampire. A lot of people have been asking for one. Then that will just drop straight in because I think the Vampire's absolutely fantastic. So if they do a Mini ITX, now if not, then I'm happy to make a frame to hold it. But I won't be doing the cable kits, so the team, people can make their own cable kits. But again, I'm happy to make a frame to hold the thing in place with the ports at the back and then cables to move the other ports.
It's not a big deal, is it? It's just extending cables out to the back, which are panel mount that you can just screw into the back of the case.
So the answer is it's a case.
It's a case, yeah.
You've shown what you can do with a case.
Yeah. So you've got some experience now under your belt with the first case. You know how to make this happen. What's the plan this time round to bring this to market?
We're kickstarting it. There'll be the basic case again. There will also be complete builds. Some of the options will be like, do you want an FPGA based system complete? Because a lot of people ask me about, I just want to have a complete system and buy it. So we're doing an FPGA system. It's not up with the performance of the Vampire, but it's more around 1200 performance with AGA.
Right, so you'll be able to buy from you an off-the-shelf mini Amiga 3000, or close to original size Amiga 3000, with the system in there, FPGA.
And the licenses for the operating system.
the licenses for the operating system, so it's all above board, and it will be running at about the speed of a 20 megahertz.
Yeah, the FPGA one's going to run about 20 megahertz, 1200 speed, that kind of thing.
Like an 020.
Yeah, so it's almost the performance of a 3000, but with AGA graphics. Which would be quite,
really
it'd be like
nice
the prototype, the original prototype. So.
Off the shelf. So still a few details to iron out before we get to the Kickstarter phase. But this is a world exclusive, I think. Are we the first to show this?
Absolutely.
I think we are. Good. I'm looking forward to seeing how this develops. And we'll come on to your next project now, which will just require us to set up because we're going to give a demonstration of this. Do you want to introduce it quickly? What's this?
So it's one of the other things with the new case was I know that a lot of people want FPGA because it's time, as I was trying to explain to Sam, it's very time accurate. But some people just want they're happy with the word emulation, which I hate the way it's a dirty word because the technology is amazing in emulation, and people treat it as a dirty word. So, but the Raspberry Pi, this is the Pi 4. Now this, I can run 1,000 MIPS on this and put that into some kind of context. I recently did a video on the Warp board 060, which is really fast. And this is 4 to 5 times faster than that, but it's £35.
Yeah.
So my thinking was, well, what can you do with all this performance? And so that's what we're going to come to, which is the concept of Amiga Hybrid.
The Amiga Hybrid or the AMI Hybrid, undecided.
Well, yeah, it depends.
Working title.
When you're ready, Mike. So I'm hoping I can use the name Amiga Hybrid. We're in discussion about that. It's just whether it's the right fit for the brand. But maybe if not, it's going to be AMI Hybrid or Amiga Hybrid, one of the two.
Good. And it's not a car. He hates it when you call it a car.
Yeah.
Let's get it set up, Stephen, and we'll have a look at it in action.
Okay, fantastic. Many years ago, I had a product called Siamese System. And the idea of that was, this is in the mid-90s, and what it did was it allowed an Amiga and a Windows 95 machine to coexist. And so you'd have a single box, and your Amiga 1200 would sit here, and you'd have a PC in the box, single key, you'd use the Amiga keyboard and mouse, and then everything just worked together. So if you wanted to run a Windows program, you'd have the Windows program shown on screen, flick screen back to the Amiga, the switcher which was built inside would switch across to the Amiga, and you can cut and paste text between them, etc, etc.
So what was the host system in that case?
There wasn't really a host because there was actually a physical Amiga.
Right.
Then it was actually physical hardware. And then there was a physical PC. So it's a bit like you'd use imagine remote desktop. It's kind of that thing. Remote desktop obviously killed the whole concept. And nowadays we have emulators. At the moment, what we're doing is we're doing it with a Linux host. Now this is on emulation. So you have a Linux host, a 64-bit Linux host running on the Pi, and it runs a customized version, although that's now the default of a product called AmiBerry, which is an Amiga emulator, which has been running for years and is used most for games.
So the whole hybrid concept then, the host in this situation is Linux underneath.
Yeah,
but it presents it to you as if it's an Amiga.
Yeah.
And then you can dip into Linux applications from within the Amiga. I think the best way to show us is to actually just show it. So do you want to give us a tour of the system?
So what we've got is an Amiga, and when you turn it on, it boots straight into this interface. And if I want to go in, I've obviously got all my applications. I've got demos. I've got tons of Amiga applications in a directory opus. I've got my audio applications, but already you can see, for example, Audacity, which is a Linux application. Internet, there's all the internet applications that come with Amiga X. But you'll notice down there I've got Chrome.
That's very strange, seeing Chrome on an Amiga.
Exactly. And now, the key thing here for most people is this thing called Rabbit Hole. Now, this builds on something that was developed for Amiga X on WinUEE on Windows. And basically what it is, it needs the emulator to be able to communicate with the Amiga's operating system. And we have a command on the Linux version called host run. So all these icons you see, for anyone who knows about Amigas, it's an iconics, which means it's an icon that executes a script,
right? Which
is an Amiga thing. And then all that happens is a script that says host run Chrome. And that's as simple as it is. It literally does that, so you can go and run it. But I've got in Rabbit Hole is all my applications I've got set up. You could have more.
Yeah. So there's nothing special about these packages underneath.
No, nothing.
You can just set up your own script to launch any Linux application that you want.
So, for example, now I mentioned earlier, and a lot of people may get upset about me doing this, and there's a really good reason for doing this. So, say for example, I'm on a programming session, I want to actually do some work on it, but I want some music in the background. Now, I can play MP3s beautifully, and I love the fact I play MP3s on it, but why would I want to take up all my processing cycles to play MP3s?
This is processing cycles within the Amiga.
Within the Amiga emulation.
Yeah.
Because basically the Amiga CPU, get a little bit technical, the Amiga CPU emulation is pretty much running on one of the cores, and this has 4. And so the things like graphics and sound are shared across the cores. But you obviously only got one CPU core. So if I run Audacious, which then, and now you'll notice there's two pointers. One is the Linux pointer, yeah, and one is the Amiga pointer. And we're kind of looking into getting rid of, so you only have one. But the different colours helps you know what mode you're in.
Sure.
So if I click on the desktop now, the Linux one disappears and the Linux apps go behind. If I want to bring them back, I press the middle mouse wheel button and it comes back up, and I can then do Amiga tab, and I'm tabbing through Linux applications now. If I didn't have that one, I'll be tabbing through Amiga applications.
So we've downloaded some music that I know I won't get a copyright strike for. You've got it all loaded up and ready to go?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, go ahead then.
So the reason for doing this is, as I may mention, is that if I run this on the Linux side of things, I just want some music in the background. I'm not using emulation cycles to play the music. Mm-hmm. And so now that's playing, I can just stick that into the background. Now I'm back on Amiga. So now it's not impacting any performance of the Amiga. People will say, why don't you play on the Amiga? But then it just slows the Amiga emulation down. So, and I actually want to use this. So I'll give you an example of why this is really nice. So if we go into, for example, if I go into one thing I really like, which is Lightwave. Now this is the old 68K version, but you can see it runs really nice. It runs in 1280 by 1080p. I think I've got this set. It's still in 4.3, but if I load up a scene, now if ever, this only means something if you're an Amiga animator. And in fact, funny thing is, Dimitri, the guy who is doing the emulator, they actually have a Lightwave render farm, 68K, and they use Pies for actually doing the rendering. So now you can see, I've got it all switched on, and I can go through.
There's all the frames of animation there, yeah.
So I can zoom through and see how nice and smooth. Now you run that on a normal Amiga, it struggles. I mean, I run that on my Warp and it runs nice, but it's just nowhere near this. Rendering on here is about 4 times faster than my Warp 60 board, which is no slouch. But so for example, I've got my cameras, you'll see my cameras here, I've got set up 1920 by 1080. Now, back in the day when this came out, you would never have done that, obviously, but now I'm going to. Go to options, not options, let's go to the right one, which is record. And I'm going to set to save this image very quickly to Space Fighters to RAM, continue, and then I'm going to just render 1 frame, which is about this frame here. So now if you did this, I actually run this test on normal Amigas, and trust me, it's nowhere near this fast. And so that's now done, it's now saving the RGB data. But now if I now switch over to here and go to RAM, okay, and if I click on here, now it's a very simple scene, but you can see, and that's just rendered that straight 1920. Now that could be a complete animation. So this is not, I'm not trying to say this is going to be fantastic for you to make a living. No, this is, a lot of people grew up, love Lightwave. And so to be able to do, and bear in mind, Babylon 5 was created with Lightwave.
That's the big one everyone thinks.
Everyone talks
Babylon
about.
5.
I won't mention that, like season 2, it moved up to SGI. I won't say that, but I was always proud of it. So I can run lots of applications. Now, one thing a tiny little thing that I like to point out is, and this is a really small thing, but it means quite a lot to me. So if I go to Micro Gold X, and I'll shrink this down just a little bit. Now this is a text editor. If I open up, go into here, and we'll go into S, and I'll open up my startup sequence. I think it'll only be developed as a developer. I appreciate this. Now that's loaded that up, but on a normal Amiga, you don't have a middle mouse button with a scroll button because it's emulation. I got that middle scroll button, and I know it's a silly little thing, but for a developer or anyone doing something serious, it means you've got that middle scroll and you get all these nice little things. You can do.
It's just instinctive, isn't it?
Yeah.
You reach for things like that, and when they don't work on an Amiga, it reminds you of what archaic sort of systems you're working on.
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes a big difference to your productivity. Yeah.
Now, I'm now going to kill that concept, and I'm going to show you one of the things we're trying to do is also have it so you can boot straight into a basic system. So when you boot the system, if you want it to, it go bang straight into it. And what we're using for that, If I go to programming, now I have to get this clear with Francois.
Yes, Francois Leonet.
But you can see this goes straight into Amos, and I do want to be able to distribute this with the systems. And so we're now straight into Amos Pro. Whichever one you want, but let's just load. Let's just get some examples. I'm just wondering whether I've got that. Oh, that's right, yeah. So I've got my... Now, you notice it's not working now.
Okay.
Yeah, see? So anything that's system friendly, but Amos takes over the whole thing. It just runs. Anyway, so let's go back to Amiga. So we can go Amiga A, takes me back to here, and if I flip through now, I'm back here again. Right, so that's Amiga software. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to show you some Amiga video playing, which tends to be like DVD resolution. So if I press play on here, and this is an old, you might remember this clip.
This is from your Kickstarter.
This is from my Kickstarter, yeah. And you can see side to side sometimes isn't very smooth, but it can play it, and it's not too bad. In fact, funnily enough, the Vampire, when you play the videos, it's got MMX decoding. So actually it runs really nice and smooth. It's actually better for playing Amiga video than this. But what we want to do is, this is a hybrid. So what I'm going to do is on the basis of hybrid, I'm going to go up to video, and I'm going to go to VLC, and I've got a video here that won't give you a copyright strike. I promise. But this will show you what you can do if you just follow the ethos of the hybrid. Say you want to just have a break and then go in and now we can have Big Buck Bunny, and we'll leave this for a few seconds.
Well, that's silky smooth, that one.
Yeah, so this is basically using the Pi for what it's meant for. It's got a 1080p chip. We had some interesting things with the... I might explain something that's quite useful here. So when you switch to Linux, the emulator now says, oh, the Amiga's gone into the background. I'll lower its priority. And so it makes the video for Linux really silky smooth because it's not having to worry about the Amiga. And then when you switch back, it will prioritise the Amiga. But the interesting thing is, if I now go down to a smaller screen, I can, if I can get hold of this, I'm going to get right in that corner, I can scale this down, and it's still playing the video silky smooth because it's in front. But you see everything's working, that the clock should see it's ticking away, so everything's still running. But we've got priority levels built into the emulation now, which is in line with WinUE.
The big one that everyone will want to do is, even if they use no other part of this functionality and they just want it to boot straight into an Amiga like this, it's the web browser, isn't it? It's the thing that the Amiga just doesn't have a good modern web browser.
I will say that, and right, before we do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow eyebrows. Yep, so there you go. Right, so we'll load up. Now, this is, if I go to, you'll probably recognise this if I go to Aminet. So if you want to go to certain non-style sheet based old websites, the HTML4 basically, it will work quite happily with your Amiga browsers. But of course, Amiga browsers we really suffer with. So,
Aminet is an example of a website made for Amiga users with those limitations in mind.
Exactly. Now, the thing by having a hybrid, if I go in and I can now go to Chrome, it'll take a few seconds to load. Now, bear this in mind, obviously it's still Raspberry Pi 4, so you're obviously limited to the performance of the Raspberry Pi 4. Now, if you had this system and it was on an x86, well, it'd be a different story altogether. Sure. But we now have this full-blown browser. So, for example, if I go to... I was going to say put yours in, but right, JMA1500 Plus. You'll notice it may take a little while to load up the YouTube bits, but again, this is. So let me just scroll down. Which way am I going? Because I'm a Mac user now. So here's my text. If I scroll down, we can see it's while it's loading those YouTube. So you can see this is my website, but now we can actually use style sheet based. We've got that browser, and that makes a big difference. If you want to use it, this is not aimed as being your sole machine.
No.
This is meant to be your fun play machine. When I finish working during the day and I turn off my Mac, which I do just about everything with virtual machines. But in the event, I will play with this, and I'm experimenting with it and creating this, and talking to Dimitri about that. We've got a problem. Maybe there's a bug. Who knows? But now we've got access to these full-blown browsers, and if I scroll up, we've obviously got like YouTube. YouTube.
I recognise that.
Yeah, yeah. So now, of course, I know. Well, this will depend, obviously, how fast that. Okay.
There we go.
The sound. So there's Neil. I think the volume might be really. Yeah, the volume's very low. So that's
fine.
good. So you can see it'll play and it'll play at full screen. So you have access to YouTube, and you obviously know that channel. But it does mean that while you're using the Amiga, and you can jump back into a proper browser, you can jump into LibreOffice, you can use all that. But the bulk of the time, you close that down and then you just carry on. So some people say, well, why would I want to do that? I don't know. I always thought it was quite good fun.
Yeah, so, I mean, thank you for the demonstration. I think we get a good feel for what is and isn't possible with that. And that is the big question. Who is it for? Why would you use it? Does that question even need to be answered? Because this isn't something that you've created as a commercial product. No, it's just an example of what you can do with a Pi, and something that you might want to put into your up and coming case. Yeah. You might put something completely different in the case, but it's just a thing that we can play with if we want to.
Yeah, so basically, if you want to build, if you're buying this case, you probably want to make it look like an Amiga. If you want it to act like an Amiga, now you can do. We can do with the most people, especially old Amigans, aren't aware just how powerful and how nice you can make their desktop. I know you are, but a lot of people aren't aware you can have a 1080p display with the Amiga. So we can do all of that. Key thing is that you can start with a £35 Raspberry Pi just to play, and if you enjoy it, we've got a lot of people coming back now. They want to be able to develop using like Amos, or they want to develop games, because as we speak now, there are at least a couple of brand new games coming out for Amiga, and they're being developed not necessarily this way, but they're being developed, cross-developed. So
games like Rygar and is Super Sprint, I think, is being developed at the moment.
So,
things like that, and you don't want to have the constant fear of developing it on original hardware, where that hardware might fall over. And you've got the huge speed advantage here. One thing with a modern IDE.
I think one thing I will say, my favourite thing. I'm not really a game player, as I've mentioned, but I love demos. And so I have a great big library of demos here, which I can go into. But I also have a lot of people will. In fact, I will just go into this. If I go into here quickly, there's one in here I particularly like, which most people out there will know. Starstruck's one of my absolute favourites. Now this may make a little bit of noise, so we'll probably stop this once it gets going. So I don't know how the volumes are going to work out. But obviously this runs faster than those 60 speeds. So if you actually want to go through and just look at your demos, or you're creating demos, it's just, all I'm saying is it's a nice potential option for you.
It's always nice to watch these demos rendered in real time and not on a YouTube video, isn't it? Which is where you'd often have to go to actually see them running.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's nice. Now, what's the availability of this software? Can anyone download it? Is it available?
Yeah, so on my Patreon page, and it's public. You don't have to be a Patreon to download the instructions on how to do this. The instructions are aimed at people who are happy with the terminal.
Right.
There's a lot of commands to type in. It takes probably 15 minutes to set this up.
So this is all explained on your Patreon page, but you don't need to be a patron to see those instructions. It's just where you've hosted the information. And you've very kindly let me keep hold of this one.
Yep.
So I can have a play with this. No doubt you'll see more of this on the channel in the future as I get more familiar with it. Maybe we'll stream it on one of my upcoming live streams. Yeah. And we'll put it through its paces. So thank you for that, Stephen.
That's right.
I'm excited for you. It's great to see you. You haven't run off into the sunset after the success of the first case with a suitcase full of cash. You're giving back more and more to the Amiga community and the wider community. You don't have to put an Amiga in that new case that you've created.
Not at all. Just do it.
It's nice to have all of these options. So thank you for the work that you do.
No, that's great.
And do keep us updated on your progress with it.
And thanks very much, and again, congratulations.
Thank you.
I can't wait for my book to arrive.
Why don't you put on another demo to see us out today?
Yeah, sure, okay.
Pick one.
Let's go have a Nexus 7.